Welcome to the Breakthrough Moments podcast, a podcast where challenges meet opportunities. I'm Harold, and together with my co-host Lasse, we explore stories of innovators, leaders, professionals, and entrepreneurs, and how they turn obstacles into game-changing breakthroughs. Get ready for insights that inspire and lessons that last. Subscribe now, and let's dive into the moments that define success.
Welcome to this episode of the Breakthrough Moments podcast. Today I have the pleasure of introducing Casper, a Danish entrepreneur who's built one big startup, which isn't a startup anymore now in Denmark, but it comes from a really interesting background where he suddenly just kind of like accidentally fell into IT after building a couple of projects and ended up then taking a company which didn't really have a plan for how to monetize it to start off with to make money of it, but things happened and is sitting today a decade later with a large company and many cool projects on the pipeline. So we'll get into that. But first of all, thank you for coming on, Kasper. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you, Lasse, for having me. It's a pleasure to join the podcast. And it's true what you said. Lots of different turmoil through the time in the company. And if I were back then, knowing where we would be today, I wouldn't believe myself. So it's lots of different things that has happened, definitely.
Cool. Let's start from that, Kasper, because you mentioned, I think it's hard to grasp without hearing the story. Like, you kind of just ended up in IT after you had a job where you made, like, correct me if I'm wrong, like, I'm just basing it off my memory from when we talked last. You had a job where you did a project which was IT related, and then on the spot, you were just hired for an IT role. Like, how did that come to be? Like, how did you end up in that situation?
I guess I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit in some sort, but I had a job as a phoner in a telco company where we were calling up potential customers to sell them newspaper subscriptions, and it was and I was like using this system every day from 9 to 5 and working hard to sell these newspapers, and then on the side I was studying data science, and I thought that it was really a shitty system that we were using, to be honest. And then I knew one of the guys that was the project manager for this system, and I told him, if you can give me access to some test data, I would like to propose a new version of the system that we are using today. And then throughout a weekend, I built a prototype of it, and then I showcased it, and they was just amazed by it. So I was hired to build the real version of the system the week after, and I think like 5 months later, they actually sold that system to that newspaper so they could use it themselves for 10 million Danish kroner. So that was kind of my first kind of experience in disrupting something, and then just having the bravery just to do it, and then something positive came out of it, at least. Maybe there was, of course, some doubts in my mind whether they would see it as a good thing or a bad thing. And it did also come with a price, because in that department where I was hired, I was sitting next to the guys that built the old system. So they were not too happy by having this young kid coming in and showing everything, how things should be done. But, I just had to do it. I think it was so bad, so I needed to do something about it. I could, of course, maybe it's also a management issue that the manager of that department were not, managing that transition the right way. But anyways, that was my first step into this.
How is that typically in Denmark with that type of like entrepreneurial spirit in terms of building new systems? That basically the way I hear it is that they made quite good money off you building that system. So I guess the company would in the end be happy. But how is the culture like for fostering that? Like, I spoke a couple of days ago on the podcast to a guy who runs a big Spanish company, and there they really, really foster that basically like there's no hierarchy in the company, and they encourage all types of entrepreneurial ideas. How is that in Denmark?
I think that has changed a lot throughout my career, at least. When I started, it was in a very old telco company, the biggest in Denmark. So there was an enormous hierarchy. It was impossible, and it was not fostering any fruitful thoughts at all. So, but that has changed a lot in Denmark throughout the years, and now it's like really a hotspot for entrepreneurs and startups and everything. So I think that has changed a lot throughout the past like 5-8 years. Maybe stupid, but a television show like The Lion's Den, it's just, or Shark Tank or whatever it's called. It's that has just brought something new into the general public of how cool it is to run a startup, and that you really encourage people to take that leap.
Interesting. I don't think they've set up anything similar in Norway yet, which is typical for the startup scene, comparable like in the Scandinavians. Okay, cool. Okay, but so you went ahead, and that was kind of like your first taste of building things. At what point did you come up with Hello Retail, and what was the thesis behind the company?
I was working in another telco company called Telmo, which was in Denmark, the very disruptive company that really disrupted the entire telco industry, both in Denmark but also in Europe back in the days. And that was run by a guy called Frank Rasmussen, an entrepreneurial man that is so disruptive in everything he's doing. So I guess that was really fueling my wishes to build something myself as well. But I was fired in Telmo actually at some point, because it was actually taken over by my old company, TDC. And after some time, I had the need for changing stuff, and maybe I was too fast going on that part. So I was asked to find another place to be. That was fine. And then I was contacted by my co-founder today, and that told me that we really need to do something together. And he had a good idea on what we should build. So we started up in the spare time. That was not like a hobby project, because it was like full-time nighttime and full-time in the weekends, because we had our regular jobs on the side. So at that point, it was really a matter of not the idea, but a matter of finding that right mix of personalities between me and my co-founder, and we just knew that we needed to do something together and build something that we could be proud of.
Cool. How is that dynamic for you? Like, who is your co-founder?
Some wise people tell you that you need two people to build a good startup. You need a hustler and a hacker. And I'm the hacker, and he's the hustler. So he's really, really good at finding, openings in the market, fostering new ideas, coming up with these. He's kind of an inventor of finding spots in the market that really can be utilized. And then I'm really good at taking something and executing hard on it. He's still here in Hello Retail. It's really a joy to have him around, and being this kind of a good old married couple that can, discuss on the hallways. And I bet that all the employees here sees us as a good married couple that can argue. But it's really good to have some good people around you.
Okay, cool. And you mentioned when you started Hello Retail, you raised quite a lot of money. You mentioned it was like 10 million Danish kroners, I think. I don't remember the currency right now, but it's more than €1 million, right?
Yeah. It was 10 million Danish.
How, like you mentioned, that was quite like spectacular at the time, given that you didn't really have a track record or anything. Like, how did that come to be? Like, what was the process that you went through?
So the process was that Brian, my co-founder, and me started this gift list service back in the days, which was an online thing. Back in the days, there were not that many web shops that had an integration to a wish list, and we always talked about it back in the Telmo time, that we needed this wish list functionality. So we thought that maybe we could build this functionality and offer that for e-commerce. So we did that in our spare time, as I said before, and brought it to some level where we couldn't manage, but we didn't make any money out of it. So we thought that at some point we needed to go full time and go big on this part. So we needed to raise some money to be able to do it. Both of us had families and kids and everything at that time as well. So we couldn't take that full leap to be all down in the founder levels. So we needed to take an investor dialogue on that part. So we sent out some teaser material to different kind of venture funds, and got contacted by a Danish fund called Sunstone at that point. They've changed the name now, but that was Sunstone. And I think that we were quite lucky, actually, because the partner that we were pitching to also himself at some point have pitched the wish list functionality to his colleagues. So he was really all in from the get-go. So it had like one meeting and then some due diligence and then some discussions, and then in one go we just got 10 million kroner in one tranche. No milestones or KPIs or anything, on the back of two very unexperienced entrepreneurs. But I guess we had the energy, and I guess we had a good idea, and we were really pushing forward. And I think that at that point it was like Facebook early days. So they really saw that hockey stick potential in a wish list, because the wish list is by itself very viral. It's a sharing thing. So they really saw that this could really go big. It didn't, but that's another story. But that was how it ended, actually.
Yeah, I'll get into that, because that's the interesting part of like the trajectory of Hello Retail, that you said that you raised over €1 million, but without really a plan for how to like monetize and get the returns on that million. Or
yeah, because the wish list was free for the consumers to use, and the wish list was free for the e-commerce businesses to use as well, because we thought that if we can get enough people to use the wish list, we will have enough data at that point to be able to raise more money and create a business case around that in the future. That was the time where, it's quite a long time ago. So that at that point in time, data and the data density and the amount of data that we had was enough to raise money. So the first KPIs we had was to have 1 million consumers using the wish list in the first year. And I think we had less than 100,000 when the first year has gone. And when we don't make any money from the consumers, we didn't make any money from the e-commerces, and we are like burning like 400,000 Danish kroner a month. So you can guess that at some point the 10 million will be gone. So yeah, we didn't have any ideas on how to make money. We just thought that the traction and that alignment for the hockey stick was really going to make it possible for us to raise more money and build that data foundation for us to monetize it later on.
Yeah, and that was obviously like the period where I can imagine at the burn rate of 400k Danish, like month by month, so like 35k euros or something month by month, for the audience to understand as well. That I probably guess caused a lot of stress like throughout that period. Like, at what point did you come to, like, again pinning the term, like, to a breakthrough moment where you changed up like the whole model to get Hello Retail to become what it is today?
So after a year and a half, I think it was like we had a meeting with the investor and trying to repitch everything to tell them that they just needed to have some more possibility to see things going the right direction going forward, and we were really building on the product and everything. But they told us at some point that, you guys, you need to figure out to speed up the monetization part of your dreams. So at some point we realized that, okay, so we need to make some money out of this. We had so many happy e-commerce customers using our wishlist because it was a new thing back then, and they thought that it would really make good sense, and they got some traffic back from the wishlist, and everything was quite good, and they were happy because it was for free. So my co-founder, he took his car and drove all the way through Denmark and visiting, lots of our customers and asking them, so what can we do for you guys to be able to pay for our service? So they came up with the idea of us being able to promote some of their products to our users in a new way, not the traditional way in our universe, but taking that recommendation, so to speak, out of the wishlist service and promoting that on their website or in their newsletters. So that was how our thoughts on the recommendation engine that we're utilizing now actually came to life. So he came back to the office and they told me and our really, really skilled developers on the idea on doing this. And then 2 weeks later, the product was live and they started paying for it. So that just ended up at some point giving us an MVP for that exact product that could be monetized. and then us starting building a sales engine on top of that. So that was the next part of our journey, was to figure out how to sell a product. We didn't know anything about that to begin with, because everything was for free.
Fascinating how, for many people, or for most people, I would guess, the whole storyline goes in the opposite direction. That they start by figuring out how to sell something, and then they raise money. While when you flipped it, then you could, to some extent, say that you put yourself in a situation where you were kind of like brute forced into learning like the selling part in a way more intense way than you would have had to if you went the other way around, which which created an interesting endpoint to it. So how long has Hello Retail existed for now, and how has the monetization gone from that point on?
So so the first thing that we did, after realizing that it was not possible for us to continue down that gift list or that wish list road, we found a really skilled business angel. His name is Niels Henrik Rasmussen. He's built Secunia, Peneo, and other kinds of really great companies, and he taught us how to sell. So that was kind of another subtle breakthrough moment, because whenever you learn that way to think and that way to work, it really changes something in an organization. So and that's kind of 8-9 years ago. And then we learned how to build the product, sell even more and more and more, and then we have raised some fewer rounds down the line, not large rounds, not a Series A or anything like that, but we just continue to chase the profitability of the business and the success of our customers to be able to build on top of that. So we introduced new products, etc. So after the recommendation part of it, we built a search engine to the company. We built an audience feature where you can really segment your customers to find new ways to approach them. So all different kinds of products that we're just, adjacent products that make sense to the journey of an e-commerce. And now we are like 50-60 people in the office, and we are just shy of the $10 million ARR at this point in time. It's been just short version is that we had a really big boost in our company during the COVID, and especially just after the first part of it. So 2021, I think we had an 80% growth rate at that year. And then a lot of things collapsed the other years. I think that a lot of SaaS companies out there can tell that same story. Lots of the e-commerce businesses out there has closed down. So we have needed to find new ways of going forward. But if we continue to focus on the success of our customers and really double down on that part, that's where we have our safety net, because we have a lot of happy customers.
Yeah, and speaking of the customers that you have now, Casper, that's where I understood it as well, that you're leading with, like, going into the future now, that you want to find more products that can serve the same customer base. As, for example, we're launching like a month ago or something, new product intelligence. What was the thought behind that? Did that come directly from the customer base, that they asked for the functionality that it offers, or how did you come up with it?
Yeah, so that's a really long story. I'll see if I can cut it a bit short. But 3-4 years ago, or even maybe a longer time ago, GDPR entered the scene. And to a large extent, GDPR is put into play to regulate companies like ours that are tracking the customers going around, making recommendation and personalization offerings. And at that point, we really thought that we need to have our integrity in place and really do the right thing. So we're not going to go after still being able to track the individual. We want to leave people's privacy alone, which is what people want. But how can we still make an offering to e-commerce that makes sense? So we at that point we invented product intelligence, which is really, just to give you a 10 seconds on that part, is an proprietary AI engine that we built ourselves that can understand a product like a human being can understand a product. So when you see a summer dress, you immediately in your human brain can resonate that this goes good with these sandals and this summer hat or whatever, but a computer cannot do that by itself. But having access to millions and millions of products and billions of interaction points by anonymized users, we can really teach an AI engine to understand a product the same way as a human. So that's what we built, and that's what we have launched now. But it's been like 3 or 4 years on the way, because it's not just a regular product or a regular project of ours. It's really a substantial change to the business on the way that we understand and build our products to our customers. So that's really the core part of our company going forward.
Cool. Yeah, so you have then, I guess, since you bring up GDPR for it, you have some sort of data filter for the data coming in, which the basically language model then looks at and creates recommendations for it? Or how does it work in practicality?
But it's not a language model. It's not like, AIs have many different branches, and there's the generative AI, but there's also a branch called discriminative AI, which is the ability to recognize patterns in large data scenarios. And this is really what we built. So we're able to recognize patterns out of multiple different data sources. So it's both on the products, but it's also on the interaction on the products. So the data that we get in is both from the products from the stores. It's like the title, the image, the description, the price, the hierarchy of price that they have. But it's also the interaction data that a customer has seen the product but left again, but another customer saw the product but went further to another, etc. So all different kinds of understanding on how this product inflicts on a behavior of a human being, which makes us able to reverse that part and then understand the product, what it really is. And using that in our personalization offering, because now we can actually tell you that if you like this kind of brand, we can extrapolate that knowledge to also know different other kinds of brands, etc. So all this kind of knowledge that we have built is now the basis of our search and recommendation, our merchandising, etc. And it holds a lot of potential, we believe, at least. And really, if you see the space out there for tracking users and so on, or e-commerce tracking, etc., you would typically see that 95% of all the tracking systems out there, they're there for tracking the users, the visitors, the customers, so you can see your bounce rate, the conversion rate, etc. But there's hardly any tracking or any knowledge about the products that they sell. So how that we can offer this kind of insight into the dark side of the moon, so to speak, so that we give some insight on where people usually are left in the blind or in the dark. So that's what we're going to do. And we're going to launch a lot of new customer-oriented products to go with that going forward.
Okay, cool. Just to open that box, because I'm curious, I love new ideas for different ways of monetizing things. What types of areas do you think will be the most interesting ones to launch products within? What types of functionalities do you see that we can build now with the tech that isn't already out there and mainstream use?
So I have a portfolio, I think, of 1,000 ideas at least, but I'll give you a few.
Yeah, give the best free.
The best is hard for me to say because that needs to be tested really, and that's actually where you find your breakthrough moment, when you actually test it out at MVP, and then you get the traction, and you really learn how to understand that reaction that you get to a product that you put out there. But one of the things that I find amazing is that we can now tell you, if let's say that an e-commerce business utilizes our product intelligence, we can actually tell you which of your products do have the best retention rate. So which of your products should you actually be using in marketing perspective? And we know all of the products, like the 10 or 30,000 products that you have in your inventory, we can tell you from the get-go which of them would make the most loyal customers if you use it in a marketing campaign. So that's an amazing thing for instance, marketing agencies to get that knowledge. We could also tell you if they buy this sofa, what will they buy for the next and the third product and when. So we can also tell you whether what kind of frequency you should put into your marketing setup, like for the remarketing of products, or you should market a pillow to go with that sofa after 4 weeks, because that's when they are most likely to buy. So that's kind of one aspect of it. Another thing is that we can tell you exactly what would be the best discount rate to put on your product. So we know that that a lot of people are approaching Black Friday and are pushing a lot on finding that right level of discounting. But we can tell you that if you put 40% of discount on your product, you will actually sell more if you put 30% of that particular product. So that you both will make more money because you will sell more, but you also have a higher revenue, a higher margin in terms of that, because you can actually monetize more on the products that you sell. So it's lots of different insights that is based out of the understanding of the product and all the knowledge that we have about the products out there.
How do you track the discount specifically? Is that just like data that you gathered from like an industry specific point? As of like historically, products that are, if we take the summer dress again, summer dresses on like, for example, in May, so right before season in Northern Europe, summer dresses that are put on 30% versus 40% have this percentage increase in sales, or where does the data come from? Like
that comes from our understanding of our customers, let's say workflow and data that goes through the system. It's important for me to emphasize that we are not using our customers' data to give that out to anybody else. But it's like when you have an AI machinery that you try to teach something and to learn and to be clever and do some prediction on it, you need to feed it a lot of data, and not necessarily that same data that comes out of it, but it's actually learning something to say what should be the best discount rate to put on precisely that product in May. That might be a different discount if you put it in September or in October, and we can tell you that as well. But one of the key issues for many e-commerces out there, especially in the fashion industry, is that their inventory is changing all the time. Yeah. So they're taking in a new collection of summer dresses, but they have to start in their tracking from a ground zero every time, because it's a new SKU coming in that you need new traction to see the behavior and then align with that. But we can actually tell you from the exact beginning, this product will sell this much on a Tuesday, this much on a Thursday. You should put it on this discount, and you can expect this many to come back if they have bought it the first time. All these kind of different kind of metrics and insights into a product category or product specific is the core part of product intelligence that we believe will make a new way of working with e-commerce.
It's fascinating, and I understand what you mean by the emphasis that you're not using the data, because a lot of people listening might be thinking like, at some point someone steps over a line, but the main difference here that I see, at least, is that it is still made for like people to just say the summer dress. Someone is going to buy the summer dress either way. So when you make it easier to buy it in May or September, or when it becomes best available, will just make the markets better as a whole. And if you were to look like, because this is obviously things that you're building right now, and you have the data in place and you have the tech in place to set things up. Of course, it's a development process, so we can just spin it up next week. Mm-hmm. But if you were to look at the industry, like, I'm just curious, since you're so deep into this, like 5 years into the future, or let's say 10 years, like if that's even possible to imagine with the industry, how it's turning out, like what types of tools do you think it will be possible to implement in the industry then? I know it's a big question, but curious to hear your thoughts.
You know, we are in the middle of a paradigm shift in the technology industry with the rise of AI, so it's completely impossible to predict anything in what's going to happen in 10 years. The shopping behavior is going to change completely in 10 years. I see that the technology and everybody will have different kind of agents that will take care of 90% of your shopping, because 90% of your shopping is mainly actually goods that you know that you need. It's like shampoo, it's food, it's new winter boots every third year. It's all these kind of necessities that is just going to be bought anyways. So agents will do that, and then there will be a lot of this is a hard question, but there will be lots of fight on the last 10% where we buy from our impulse. I think live shopping will be more out there, influencers presenting products. I saw another crazy video from Japan or China where, influencers was just holding up a product onto the next one, holding up a product. Maybe it was just for fun, but it's gonna go in some different kind of directions. I don't know. It can explode in any direction, but it's important to understand that the knowledge about products is something that is very undiscovered in the industry today. You know everything how to track a user, you know everything about behavioral intelligence, you know everything in terms of marketing, in terms of profiling, segmenting. There's so many tools out there, but there's very, very few, in my understanding at least, that goes hard on the products and the intelligence that you can extract from those products and how to align that to be able to build a more lean e-commerce business. So at least I think that's a path forward for us. Well, it's going to be exactly that in 10 years. I bet you not, but it's definitely going to have some seeds that will blossom to something new in the future as well.
Cool. Interesting to hear. Like one final question, Casper, which we'd like to bring up for all guests that come on here, and it is related to again like future breakthroughs, and we've spoken about it. Like it is the products that you're building. But if there was today one question that you could get answered related to the business, what would that be? Like, what would you like to know for the next breakthrough chapter?
Yeah, and that is a good question. Stupid answer would be that I would like to know that question because then I could double dive into that. All questions has answers out there, and really how you make a business is really by trying out. I guess that's also some red thread throughout my history here is that you have to be bold and you have to be disruptive and you have to try it out. No answers will come by just sitting back. So try it out, test it out, work on it. If it doesn't work, go back to something new. But try it out, do something about it. Don't sit on your hands. So if I knew that question, if I knew the answer to your question, which then would be to rephrase a new question for me, I would definitely go hard on that. But that's what we do every day in the management in Hello Retail. We are seeking out those questions on what is it that we do not know about the future that we need to look more into. So I guess that would be my answer because it's really hard. I don't have anything out there that of course we're worried about the macroeconomics, the situation in the world. Who knows what's going to happen? Maybe when people listen to this podcast, everybody's know what's going to happen in the U.S. election. Tonight. But so many things can actually happen out there, right? Being able to adapt to a new reality is really important in the future, especially when you're in a paradigm shift. Either it's a wave coming through towards you, either they will flush you away, or you will embrace that wave. The popular speech is to be a surfer, right? To ride that wave. So find that angle to your surroundings, to the space, to the market that you're in, and then really try to double down on whenever you see something that is working.
I like your answer, Kasper, even though as you said like that it's the stupid answer, but it's also a really good one. Like I've never heard anyone say that before, but it's the words of what at least in my mind sounds like an action taker. That if I knew the question, I would already be doing it. So
yeah, but
but cool. Well, Kasper, thank you so much for coming on. I wish you all the best with the further launch of Product Intelligence. I'll leave the link for anyone listening here that perhaps runs some type of e-commerce store to check it out and see if it's something for them. Then we'll do just that. And then I guess when people listen to this, as you said, then they'll know the output of what we're waiting for tonight. This will come at some later point. But again, thank you for coming on, Kasper. See you later.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thanks.